Accessing peace. Existing without violence, with the ability to calmly resolve conflict. Downloading love. An overwhelming, deep, positive affection towards others. Activating liberty. Living your life as you see fit without infringing on the lives of others.
Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I am your host, the Liberty Penguin, the Wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism, the friendliest anarchist you'll ever meet. And you know what day today is, right? Hopefully. Assuming that you're listening on the same day that I'm recording this, it's Friday. And that means, well, it means a lot of things to a lot of people. For some people, it means, hey, it's the end of the work week. For other people, it's another day. For Rebecca Black, it's Friday, something, get down on Friday, front seat, back seat, something. But here on this show, it means it's the day that I answer your questions. And I've got some good ones this week. I've got three, well, kind of like 3.5-ish or 2.5-ish. I'll explain as I'm going along here. So starting off, question is, what is this? No, just no. Darryl, what's your take on this? And it's a link to a clickbaity article that, and I'm just so absolutely annoyed by clickbait. I'm not necessarily annoyed that people share clickbait, because that's kind of the whole point, is that people share clickbait, but I'm annoyed by clickbait. Clickbait annoys me. Or rather, I guess I should say, 10 ways that clickbait annoys me. Number 3 will blow your mind. I don't actually have a list of 10 ways that clickbait annoys me. It just does. But anyway, the headline: Congress submits bill making it illegal to hold cash, Bitcoin, or other assets outside of a bank without informing them. Yep, that's the headline. And, well, there was a bill submitted, but it doesn't do this. It's not a good bill. I'm not trying to say by any stretch of the imagination that Senate Bill 1241 in the United States Congress, currently in the Senate Judiciary Committee, where it has been for over a month. Note, it's stayed in committee for over a month. Nothing has happened to the bill. It's been in committee, and technically it's been, quote-unquote, read twice, which is just some weird sort of parliamentary thing to where they're like, yep, we've got the bill. All right, read it once. Yep, still got the bill. Read it twice. And then a third reading is when they, actually wind up taking some action. Doesn't mean that anybody in Congress actually read this damn thing. And based on the clickbaity headline here, it sounds as though the author over at the Event Chronicle, whatever that is, also hasn't really read the bill. Certainly, they link to some of something, and they also link to a source called the Sovereign Man. Again, whatever that is. And they seem to be claiming that this bill would make it illegal to store cash, punishable by like 5 years in prison, possibly 10 for just storing cash outside of a bank. Nope, that's not what the bill does at all. Again, it's not a good bill. I'm not saying it's a good bill. I'm just saying that this headline that I was asked about is clickbait. Now, what does the bill actually do? Well, I'm not going to read the entire thing to you, but Private Internet Access has a good write-up on this, and their headline is a lot more accurate. Headline: These are the 4 U.S. senators that want to create a way to track your digital currencies at the U.S. border. Whoa, 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 whoa! This sounds totally different. If someone had sent me these 2 headlines and said, Darryl, what are your thoughts on these 2 pieces of legislation? I would have thought 2 completely different pieces of legislation, because they want to track your assets as you cross the border. The other headline, again, says that Congress submits a bill to make it illegal to hold cash, Bitcoin, or other assets outside of a bank without informing them in writing. Again, sounds like 2 completely drastically different things. Which one is accurate? Well, the article from Private Internet Access is a lot more accurate to reality of what was actually submitted. Jumping into the article, Senate Bill 1241, the Combating Money Laundering, Terrorist Financing, and Counterfeiting Act of 2017, would make it a money laundering offense to cross the American border with more than $10,000 in undeclared cryptocurrency. Technically, it would be illegal to cross with undeclared currency, including but not limited to cryptocurrency. The article continues, the stated goal of this legislation is to bolster America's border protection strategy to interdict and detect prepaid access devices, digital currencies, or other similar instruments at border crossings and other ports of entry in the United States. The 4 sponsors of the bill: Chuck Grassley of Iowa, Dianne Feinstein of California, John Cornyn of Texas, and Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island. And some people might be surprised here. 2 of these individuals are Republicans. 2 of them are Democrats. Dianne Feinstein and Sheldon Whitehouse being the Dems, Chuck Grassley and John Cornyn being the Republicans. Again, not a good bill by any stretch of the imagination, but the headline from the Event Chronicle that I was asked about is just absolute BS. It is clickbait, and clickbait needs to die in a fire. The reasons will shock you. Not really. It's not that shocking to say that clickbait needs to die in a fire. There are more questions, and I have more answers, so stay tuned to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates, like Namecheap, Spendabit, and Amazon at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. Or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. That's shop.fppradio.com. The Doublespeak Dictionary by Leslie Starr O'Hara satirizes the marked difference between the ideal of we the people and the reality of we the elite, while offering an insightful glimpse into the clockworks of the totalitarian mind. Ever irreverent but never irrelevant, the Doublespeak Dictionary serves as a subversive and humorous but timely reminder that the emperor has no clothes. The Doublespeak Dictionary is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry, online at fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Maybe you want to get your hands on some undeclared gold and silver. Maybe you have some of that undeclared Bitcoin. Again, the bill has just been introduced. There have been no actions at all on that bill, but maybe you still want to get your hands on some precious metals. Well, Robertson Roberts Brokerage can help you do that, just like they've been helping people since 1977. And they accept Bitcoin for precious metal purchases, and they've even permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. So call Roberts & Roberts Brokerage today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760. That's 800-874-9760. Or visit online at rrbi.co. That's rrbi.co. Changing questions, but not necessarily changing gears too drastically from one proposed piece of legislation in the District of Criminals that would affect every man, woman, and child in the United States to a proposal in Arizona that, again, would affect every man, woman, and child in Arizona if the person were a passenger in some kind of automobile, vehicle, device thing. What exactly am I talking about? Well, there's a headline from the Waking Times. Proposed law would jail passengers for 4 months for riding in a car without an ID. And again, somewhat clickbaity, but not too terribly far off. And this is one of those things to where I actually pulled up the text of the legislation, Arizona House Bill 2305, and looking at what is being proposed, they're not really making a drastic change to what is currently in their statutes there in Arizona, but it might, and again, this is a proposal that wound up actually dying because it never made it out of committee, and their legislature has adjourned. So as far as I'm aware, this is DOA. Getting into the article from the Waking Times, and it's written by someone from the Free Thought Project, so take that for what you take things from the Free Thought Project with. I generally say a grain of salt. A very, very, very tiny grain of salt. The article, "The Nanny State/Security State has reared its ugly head again, this time in the form of a new law that requires passengers in a vehicle to carry identification." No, it's not a law. It's not a law. It is not, repeat after me, it is not a law. It's a bill that died in committee. Bills that die in committee are not laws. Bills that die in committee are not regulations. Bills that die in committee are not new ordinances. Bills that die in committee are just that. They are bills that have died in committee. It was a proposal. Had it passed, it would have been a law, but it is not now, nor never was HB 2305 in Arizona law. It was a proposal. That aside, I continue. The proposal would have required passengers in a vehicle to carry identification, with violators facing up to 4 months in jail and a $750 fine. Again, and I will link to the text of the bill where you can read what was actually proposed, and you can see that it was not that drastic of a change from what is currently in their statutes. But why, Darryl, is there even an article about this if it's not changing anything? And why are you so adamant that this is not a law when you admit that the text of the proposal is not drastically different from what's currently in statute? Well, here's why. And I should have slapped my head at my chest a couple of times, but I'm holding a microphone. And the reason that I didn't slap my head at my chest is because I'm holding the microphone. The reason that I should have slapped my head at my chest is to sort of give an homage of sorts to Simon Miller from What Culture, who does this thing where he does a series of videos called the Why series. And why? And then he slaps his head and chest. Here's why. Last week, and again, this article actually from February, so several months ago, HB 2305 in Arizona was introduced by Anthony Kern in hopes of reinstating an Arizona law that was struck down in 2002. So, what you got is a statute on the books that says that it's on the books already in Arizona. However, it can't be enforced because judge said, nope, it's too vague to enforce. So he was hoping to tweak the language just a bit to make it enforceable. Even if HB 2305 would have passed, it would not be enforceable because it did not actually change anything about what was struck down. I continue with the article. Current Arizona law that's been upheld by a judge only requires the driver of a vehicle to carry identification. The proposal, and I'm changing some of the wording here because they're still saying law, it did not pass, it's not a law. The proposal would have required passengers in a vehicle to have evidence of identity, with failure to do so resulting in a misdemeanor charge, which allows for a penalty of up to 4 months in jail. Now, one thing that is interesting, and I'm going to sort of skip around a bit here, is there's nothing in here to differentiate between an adult and a child. Meaning that, let's just say that you're driving somewhere with your 3-year-old. You get pulled over by the cops, and the cops then demand, we need identity or evidence of identity from everybody in the vehicle. Well, if you don't have an ID card for your 3-year-old, sorry, but the 3-year-old then has to go to court. And the 3-year-old then has to wind up, giving some rationale to the judge of why they didn't have ID. Stay tuned. There's more here on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
In 1999, Darryl W. Perry began a search for traditional values, which led him down a path to the ideas of liberty. He tells the story in A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty. Of the book, Dr. Brian Sovereign says, sometimes it's funny, and sometimes I think it's crazy, but it's always authentic. Find A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty by Darryl W. Perry on Facebook, read reviews on Amazon, ask for A Rebel's Journey wherever books are sold, or visit arebelsjourney.com.
It is the year 91,001 BCE. Witness humanity's origins in Hyperchronius, a classic role-playing game for Windows PCs, with a story like no other game before. A liberty-oriented experience that is not to be missed. Go to ZOG.Ninja to get your copy of Hyperchronius today. Use the code FPP to get $1 off. Hyperchronius, ZOG.Ninja, code FPP.
This is Jeremy Scott, host of Dark 30. You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Hey, welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, the Liberty Penguin, the Wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism, the friendliest anarchist you will ever meet. We're talking about this absolutely horrible proposal that luckily died in a fire. Well, a metaphorical fire, if you will. It went to committee and never came out of committee. That's the legislative equivalent of dying in a fire. The proposal that for some reason the Waking Times media, as I believe they're reposting from the Free Thought Project, keep referring to as the new law. It's not a law. It did not pass. It was a proposal. It was only ever a proposal. Again, it made a minor tweak to something that was on the books, currently is on the books, but was ruled as unenforceable in 2002. That would require everyone, man, woman, child, anything in between, sapient being inside the vehicle would have to have an identification. Again, it died in committee, but the way the bill is worded makes it potentially applicable to anyone riding a bicycle if the officer felt like applying it in that manner. Under established precedent, the article says an officer is only allowed to request identification from someone if there is a reasonable suspicion of a crime or a traffic infraction to stop the driver of the vehicle. The representative that introduced this, Representative Kern, attempted to justify this absurd proposal by stating, quote, "Police officers need to know who they're talking to, and we want to clarify it in statute for passengers also." Yeah, that's right. Even though the statute that was passed in 2002 wound up getting struck down as, vague and unenforceable by saying that everybody in a vehicle must provide evidence of identity, Representative Kern wanted to change that to the officers would wind up having to, or requesting, and someone would be required to provide, quote, "the person's evidence of identity." I don't know what actual difference that makes. Again, let me read these two wordings to you. The current wording that was stricken as vague and unenforceable makes it a misdemeanor for someone to refuse to provide evidence of the person's identity. The proposal would make it or keep it as a misdemeanor for anyone who refuses to provide the person's evidence of identity. Again, what is the difference here? It seems to me that all he's doing is just tweaking a couple of words here to say the exact same thing. Again, it died horribly in a fire, and it is not law. It is not enforceable. Even though, something similar is on the books, 2002 court ruled it unenforceable. A spokesman for the ACLU said the proposal would ascribe a harsh punishment for a minor violation. Quote, "This proposal takes us one step closer to a society in which we're required to carry identification whenever we leave our homes. Furthermore, it needlessly piles criminal penalties onto civil violations, which would lead to huge fines and fees for otherwise minor violations. We don't need people branded criminals simply because they failed to carry or do not have an ID card." Again, as always, the link will be in the show notes. You can read it at your leisure. And skipping to the final question that actually sort of led to something completely different. I'll explain. A friend of mine says, "Darryl, can you find any coverage of the Mississippi Comic-Con from 2017? And I did some searching, found a couple of newspaper articles, and the response was, no. Is there coverage of the actual con while it was in progress? There was a news crew from WAPT 16. They filmed my daughter and I, but I can't find anything." And so I went to the website for WAPT, did a search for Comic-Con, and came across something rather interesting that I definitely want to delve into. Apparently, there's a lawsuit over who gets to use the name Comic-Con. This is something that I remember discussing a few weeks ago on Free Talk Live with Ian Freeman, and he had said that he thought that Comic-Con was trademarked. And I said, no, I'm fairly certain that Comic-Con's just, like one of those names that is used by a bunch of different conventions. And, well, it turns out that we're both right. How is it that we're both right when those are two completely different things? Well, you've got one entity claiming that they do have a copyright or trademark or some kind of thing on the term Comic-Con. And then you've got another entity saying, well, no, we get to use the name as well. And again, there are dozens of comic book conventions that use the name Comic-Con. Well, there's now going to be a court hearing, and I'll delve into this. The article, of course, coming from WAPT, which is where I found this because I was searching for something completely different. I'll delve into it here in the closing moments of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
When you hear the word lobbyist, you probably think about greedy corporations, but not all lobbyists are the same. Some are fighting for the freedoms you hold dear. Liberty Lobby LLC is doing just that in New Hampshire, working hard to represent you, not some special interest group. You can help by going to libertylobby.info, where your contribution will give us the tools we need to ensure that your voice is heard. Visit libertylobby.info today to find out more. Coinbase is a simple and secure online Bitcoin wallet for sending, receiving, and storing Bitcoin. Coinbase also allows you to buy and sell Bitcoin using a bank account or use their tools to accept Bitcoin as a merchant. Coinbase has more than 1 million consumer wallets and is trusted by over 25,000 merchants, including Overstock.com, Khan Academy, Reddit, and of course, FPP. Get started at coinbase.fppradio.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry, online at fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Again, delving into this article that's sort of tangentially connected to a question, and I answer all of your questions every Friday. Send those over using the form on the website ama.fppradio.com. Settlement talks have broken down between the organizers of two pop culture conventions in California and Utah, known for guest elaborate costumes. Those being the Salt Lake Comic-Con and the San Diego Comic-Con. Both sides are asking a judge to decide the contest over naming rights. Brian Brandenburg, a co-founder of the Salt Lake Comic-Con, says they want us to change our name. If the federal judge overseeing the case in San Diego does not side with either convention, the case could go before a jury later in the year. Salt Lake has already spent nearly $1 million in legal fees on the case. You heard that right. Salt Lake Comic-Con has already spent $1 million in legal fees over whether or not they can use the word Comic-Con to describe or name their comic book convention. Officials from San Diego Comic-Con declined specific comment on the case, though they said Utah organizers' position was quote-unquote without merit. San Diego Comic-Con is considered the flagship of the popular convention circuit that features guests dressed like superheroes, movie villains, and more, and they filed a trademark violation lawsuit against the rapidly growing Salt Lake Convention in 2014. The California organizers say they have legal ownership of the term Comic-Con in all of its forms. All of its forms. Meaning that if you run the word Comic-Con into one word, if you hyphenate it, if you capitalize the O's for some weird reason, yeah, San Diego Comic-Con says that they own that. All of it. They also say that the name of the Salt Lake event is so similar that people will think that they're affiliated. Well, what the hell else are you supposed to call a comic book convention other than Comic-Con? I'll wait for an answer. And if you have any ideas, please send them to comiccon@fppradio.com. And I might just have to start my own comic book convention because of this. And note, I'm not a comic book nerd. I think that this is absolutely ludicrous. And again, what else are you supposed to name your comic book convention other than Comic-Con? Don't forget, every Friday I answer your questions. Send those over using that web form, ama.fppradio.com.
The podcasts of FPP Radio are licensed under Copy Heart. We believe that copying is a form of flattery and do not abide by the copyright laws. Those laws serve to restrict the flow of ideas which no one can really own. Copying is an act of love. Love is not subject to law. If you enjoy the show, consider joining the Fans program and get perks like ad-free versions of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio and FPP Radio News, and also get a copy of the monthly newspaper FPP News. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com.